Over this last year, I've spoken a lot about Assassin's Creed, whether it's been retrospectives or ranking different aspects of the series that I've liked. But when it comes to the actual gameplay of the series, I've not really spoken all too much. So today I figured it's time to change that, and actually talk about one of the more undervalued aspects of the game. So before we get started, make sure to hit like, and also if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn notifications on, because YouTube doesn't like showing my videos. And with that being said, let's jump straight into ranking the Assassin's Creed combat systems. This is a bit of a weird one. The basis of Syndicate's combat system was essentially turning every encounter into a bar fight. Ubisoft Quebec really wanted to recreate the feeling of being a rough and tumble London gangster, and the system ended up pretty much going in the complete opposite direction. Syndicate's combat feels wrong in so many ways, with each blow feeling weightless, feeling like a fight you'd see in the Looney Tunes, with Jacob and Evie looking janky and cartoonish in nearly every encounter. As for how the system feels to play, not only is it far too easy, but it's genuinely just really unengaging, never providing any real moments of fear or tension, as you tediously mash X until whatever red-clothed foe falls into their weird NPC half-sleep for you to do an unimpressive finisher. Syndicate, as you probably know, is a game I generally dislike, and this combat system just feeds even more into that. Here I've included both Black Flag and Rogue, because if we're being honest, Rogue is just a 12-minute long copy and paste of its predecessor. But I can't say it was exactly improved from there. Both games provide effectively no challenge, as the infamous overpowered counter kill is mixed in with a kill streak system that turns every encounter into, again, a spam of X. The only real thing that puts the system above Syndicate is the occasional artistic flashes it shows, with some genuinely striking moves. However, the fact that a combat encounter can't be finished until certain animations are performed makes it feel far less open, far less free, and far more scripted, adding yet another gameplay element in Black Flag that I cannot stand. Assassin's Creed Odyssey had potential. Sure, it wasn't a Bayek sequel. Sure, it didn't really even have assassins. But the idea of an ancient Greek RPG, it sounded pretty cool in concept. But the thing is, as I've said countless times, Odyssey is not only a terrible Assassin's Creed game, but a terrible game in its own right, and this carries over to the combat system. Although being very similar to Origins in concept, so many aspects of it are downgraded and slowed down. Nearly every enemy you come across acts as a massive damage sponge, as arbitrary numbers fly off each enemy's corpse as you slowly grind your way through each combat sequence. The removal of shields also removed a major defensive element of the system, and these factors led to a system far less focused on actual difficulty and far more on tedium, dragging the game's 100-hour runtime even longer. That being said, the system is at least occasionally engaging, and that's the only thing that prevents it from being last on this list. This one, especially if you've seen my Ezio retrospective, might come as a surprise. I hold these games in massive regard, so having them 6th on this list kinda hurts. But the supposedly upgraded combat system that Brotherhood introduced once again ended up becoming a downgrade. Over time in the early 2010s, Ubisoft seemed set on lowering the difficulty of their games, as already mentioned with Black Flag, and this was even more present in Brotherhood. The system took the solid fundamental system of the previous two, adding on top of it a kill streak mechanic that took so much of the already limited challenge away, as every enemy could now be one-shot killed without any real effort. And whilst this was somewhat aided in Revelations with the introduction of Janissaries, it still wasn't enough to make the system engaging. Not only did this make the player just go through the motions during combat, but it also de-incentivized using stealth in any proper way. And that's why, as much as it hurts to say, Brotherhood and Revelations come out 6th on this list. If you've seen my Assassin's Creed 3 retrospective, you'd know that I'm not exactly a fan of the game. But that being said, the combat was somewhat a step in the right direction. Whilst yes, it has a lot of fundamental elements that make Black Flag so boringly easy, AC3 does provide not only more challenge, but also more moments of flair, with smaller timing windows, a wider variety of enemy types, less predictability, and more things to focus on. Assassin's Creed 3 becomes far more satisfying with its combat, providing challenge while not being tedious. It's by no means great, but as combat systems go, it's at least functional. And if you've ever played it, you know that it's the most satisfying game in the series to rack up a 100 kill streak on. Well, I mean, I don't know if you can ever be really satisfied playing Assassin's Creed 3, but it is what it is. Back in 2017, a man that we don't mention anymore spoke about a shifting paradigm in the world of Assassin's Creed's combat. And with the release of Origins, they did just that, making combat one of the main focuses of their game for the first time in a while. The system acted as a far more hit-based, grounded system, more similar to a Dark Souls-esque game, of course without any of the genuine depth or challenge. The system was refreshing for the time, and although at times janky, it did truly engage the player, and the gladiator arenas the game included showed its full potential. That being said, the system not only took away from the stealth elements of the game, but it also wasn't as in-depth as it probably should have been, and like so many of the new mechanics of Origins, it often felt surface level, as if it was acting more as a proof of concept as opposed to an actual focused mechanic. In a vacuum, this system might have been higher, but in relation to Assassin's Creed, I can't put it any higher than it is here. Assassin's Creed was the first proper game I ever played, so with that of course comes nostalgia. But to be honest, the combat system of this game is probably its least dated element. The system's robust, it's functional, and it fundamentally works, providing challenge with small counter windows and an element of actual tactics. There's numerous enemy types, some of which actually strike fear in the player's heart, and if you get surrounded it can genuinely feel overwhelming. Again, the system isn't anything groundbreaking, but in this case, that's the point. Ubisoft wanted to encourage the player to become a blade in the crowd, not a soldier in the battlefield. And so, they created a system that worked and was engaging while still being able to make it a less desirable playstyle. And realistically, that's the most important thing here. It just worked. Assassin's Creed 2 basically copied its predecessor's combat mechanics down to a T. And that worked perfectly for this beloved sequel. However, where it really shines and where it really outdoes its predecessor is in the massively expanded variety of the game. With an addition of countless new weapons, as well as improved hit and blade combat, the mechanic maintained the robust functionality of the first, whilst adding a flair that perfectly reflected the added flair of the character of Ezio and of the world of Renaissance Italy, providing a system that felt like the perfect evolution of what Assassin's Creed's combat should have been. Okay, I already know that people are gonna hate me for this one. To be honest, Unity has become slightly overrated in recent times by the community, but as someone who's genuinely loved it since its release, I can truly say that this is the best combat system in the series. The point of combat in Assassin's Creed games is to be a last resort, to be the backup when the crowds disperse, and Unity embodies this principle perfectly. Feeling once again like a continuation of the robust systems of 1 and 2, Unity provides the near perfect mixture of flair and the fearful feeling of being overwhelmed. You cannot take down 100 guards in this game. Hell, you can barely take down 5, at least in the early stages, and that's thanks to Ubisoft bringing back a system that's focused on defense, focused on timing, and focused on precision. The game encourages the player to become that blade in the crowd that I keep mentioning, but it does so without making the combat feel easy or boring or tedious. It's undesirable to get into combat, not out of the fact that the system's bad, but out of the fact that it's genuinely challenging, and it genuinely should be a last resort. If Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 are the perfect Assassin's Creed combat systems, Unity X is a modern day equivalent of them. As for variety, the customization in Unity is insane, and the abundance of weapon types at your disposal means the combat can just about never get repetitive, never get boring. It's a system that, like so many things in Unity, brings the series back to its roots and combines the best elements of what came before. Of course, if you'd rather flashy combat, or if you want a game that's truly focused on providing exciting combat, then this one might not be for you. But if you want a genuine, authentic Assassin experience, if you want to be brought back to the roots of what made Assassin's Creed great in the first place, then Unity's combat system is the closest thing Ubisoft's got to perfection. At the end of the day though, it's hard to say that combat is something Assassin's Creed's ever truly nailed. It's certainly never been the selling point of any of the games, aside from maybe Origins, and I think that realistically, that's the point. Assassin's Creed isn't about flipping around taking down 100 enemies at a time. It's about, like I've said countless times, becoming a blade in the crowd, becoming an assassin. So although there have been ups and downs, although the combat systems have never been incredible, from the aspect of Assassin's Creed, they've almost always worked. And I suppose that's what really matters. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy, it'd really be appreciated if you could hit like, and also if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on. Also, I read every single comment, so feel free to comment down below, tell me what you agree with, what you disagree with, just tell me what you think of Assassin's Creed combat. With all that being said, I've been Joe, aka FOUNDEDSCARAB, and I'll see you in the next one.